Hello, everybody. My name is Iris Argueta, and we're joining you from the headquarters in the US. And also on the live is Maya. And please forgive me if I can't pronounce your last name. Can you pronounce it for us?
Ahats.
Maya Ahatz, and she is the head of advocacy for the region there, the European region there, and also was the former country director for ADRA in Slovenia in 2015, correct?
Yes.
So we're just so happy that you could take the time. It's such a moment for us to really come together and really give a good hard look of what's happening, for that's taking place for our brothers and sisters in Ukraine. And I know that you're passionate about this subject because you've worked with refugees for many years before. So I just want to get a sense of a little bit of your role and what you've done in the past and what you're doing now before we start.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, it is. It's a very sad moment for Europe, I must say. On top of the pandemic, I don't think we can afford to have this war zone in the middle of Europe. But it is what it is. This is life, and we live in a sinful world where bad things happen. And this is why we are here. My role in the past was I was a country director of a small ADRA office on the south part of Europe in Slovenia. We were working with children, and getting them to school, just to develop them to live their full potential. And then the refugee crisis came, which is sad that we talk about it as a refugee crisis, because we should talk about the solidarity crisis. There are war zones in Syria and the neighboring countries, and people had to flee to save their lives. And it was very sad to see how people in I don't know, in European countries responded. But to be honest, there were much more of those who were welcoming people coming from the war zones than those who were against them. But sadly, the people who are against hospitality are more loud. So I had this privilege of working with other partnering organizations welcoming refugees into our countries. And then in 2018, I moved to the regional office of ADRA in Europe, and here I am in charge of advocacy, which I mean that I work with the offices, I support them, but I also work toward European institution in advocating regarding social justice items and themes.
And so this is important because some people, that perhaps may not know all the work that ADRA does, may not realize that an important part of our motto, right? Justice, compassion, and love. Justice is a very important part of the work that we do. Can you explain a little bit of what it entails, especially in the role of that you have as an advocate for the region?
Yes, the word justice can be a little bit tricky for some people, especially for the church people, because it was abused so many times. But the social justice is something that was created in heaven. We were all equal in front of God, men and women, and we were good and we were excellent. And God said, "Oh, it's such a good thing. I created a humankind. I created a person." And we were intended to live a full life, to live to fulfill our potentials and not to suffer. So basically, when we talk about social justice, we talk about our fight against the consequences of sin. What we want to do is we have an active role against sin. So we are together with God fighting everything that is bad in our planet, and we want to recreate a better environment for everybody. We want to recreate a taste of heaven on earth for everybody.
Absolutely. So it is a role. That's why, people may not realize, and, our brothers and sisters who have supported us all this time, they can now know that that is an important part of the role that we have as part of ADRA. not only do we stay there, do we come in for disaster relief. This is now we're basically there to support the refugees, the humanitarian crisis, and also that there's a second component, like you said, to be there to advocate for justice for the peoples, for the lives, no matter who they are. That is so crucial. Give me 1 second, because it looks like we're getting a phone call for one of our.
Yeah, maybe I can just add one thing.
Yeah,
It's important that we approach our work holistically.
yeah.
We need social services. We need humanitarian aid. We also need development, and we also need advocacy. It's not just one or other, but all together. And this is something that is very special for ADRA because we include all the components in our work.
Absolutely. So let's keep. I hope that people now have a better understanding of the different roles that ADRA plays when we go out and become the hands of Jesus in the field. A lot of people may not be aware that this is happening, and now more so than ever before with this crisis, we need to take a different approach of how we're going to support them. The moms, the children, the individuals who are going through this crisis. Can you tell us a little bit about, the situation? We understand from reports that about approximately 3 to 5 million people will flee the nation. Some of them may seek shelter, refuge in nearby countries, and others, they just don't know what they're going to do. So, can you describe a little bit about the situation right now?
So every time there is a lot of chaos at the beginning. So no matter in how many emergencies we are, we always end up in chaotic environment. So right now, nobody. Well, we are all hoping that this will not happen. My colleague Thomas, who is in charge of humanitarian aid, he already called upon all the neighboring offices, asking them to get prepared for for the influx of refugees. So we were working somehow on that. But when things like that happen, when war breaks out, we are not prepared. We are in shock. But okay, but we are in a safe place. What is terrible that many people are now fleeing. They don't know where they are going. Maybe they have a little bit of things with them. They are seeking. What they are looking for is a safe refuge where they will survive. This is basically what is going on in the lives of people right now. They are looking for a safe place where they will survive and where they will be able to protect the children.
That's very important. Some people see the images on TV and they see, like that there many of them are now, have actually gone to shelters in subway stations and subway cars, and it really caught my attention when I saw a mom yesterday, and she was asked, "Oh, okay, so did you know you were coming?" I says, "No, I didn't know, and I didn't think this would happen." She rushed out of the house, and all she could take with her was a bag of candy, and the little boy was with her, and she was asked, "So what are you going to do? Do you have water? Do you have food?" And she's just said, "I just have this." Can you imagine? I mean, I just, as a mom, I feel so, I can't even put myself in that position. It would just break my heart. And she says, "Well, you don't seem to be too distraught." It's just as I can't. I have a child next to me. That's such a statement that we make, as parents, but also in this part, this is where the situation seems to be even more um, heartbreaking. Correct? I mean, you were telling me that they just don't know what they have. They don't know what to do. They don't understand. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've heard, as people started to, in the morning, when they saw that this was coming in the middle of the night, that they just kind of fled their homes?
Well, basically, I'm not so much aware of what they are going through right now. I'm also watching a little bit of the news. I also, for me, the heartbreaking were messages of the people who died later on, and they were still sending messages to parents or the loved one. I also saw fathers who were saying goodbyes to children and to the wives. Usually, are men who stay behind to protect. Um, so yeah, these are very images that we are not prepared to face. But as you said, we are here to support them. So now we don't have time to feel sorry for ourselves and to get away to our emotions. now we need to be strong for these people, and we need to do what is right, and this is we need to welcome them no matter how we feel and how disturbed we are. We live in a safe zone, and we have means to protect them, to give them something so they will feel safe. And yes, and when it comes to the fleeing, when it comes, many people leave and they don't have documents with them, and this is another danger. If you travel and you don't have ID with you, you can be sold, you can be robbed, you can be killed. Everything can happen to people. So it's so important that we as ADRA, as a church, we stand together. We give them as basic as a water, as food, shelter, clothes, but also to speak up for their rights, to help them to register, to get the documents, so that we know that they exist. And it's also important to provide the connection to the families. This is very important thing. I remember when I was working with refugees from Syria and from Yemen, what they had with them were phones, and people saying, "Oh, they have iPhones." Of course, I would also take whatever phone I had at home with me, because I want to make sure that my family that is left behind can be heard, that I can contact them. These connections with the home are so important. So whatever we grab when we flee, it's okay, but be sure that we support them with whatever we have.
Absolutely. And that's very important. This is a time when you're talking about support, people are asking wherever we are, and now we're coming, for us it's 12, 15, 12, 17 in this hemisphere, North America. But when in is the eastern part of the North America. But there are people around the world who are maybe thinking, okay, so how do I support? What do I do in this time? We want to help. And the best way, I believe, is by, staying, by providing the support so that ADRA can do the job. I know that there's the banner that we have on the screen that we'll be putting up in our chat. We have it. It's the response a banner that shows you how to help, and it's adra.org/help now. And that's how you can help. And there are many ways, just by giving us just a dollar, from a dollar to anything you can, it'll go a long way to help the people of the Ukraine, and this process that Maya is talking about. That is going to take a long time, and also is going to be so much detailed support that they will need. Can you describe also, the kind of hardships? I know you talked a little bit about that, not having IDs, not having, anything with them, but when they leave their home, they don't really have, as we explained, have anything with them. But as they cross the borders into wherever, what are they facing? What kind of situation? I know you have experience with the Syrian refugees.
Yeah. So maybe I would only add one more thing. You talked about that we donate money
Yes.
to support refugees. This is the best way, because sometimes we cannot bring the material aid inside the countries. So we need to bring on in the local environment, and many times is cheaper. So money is really important. But another thing I would like to really stress, and it's so important, is that we humanize refugees, that we don't take this humanity away from these people. So don't be afraid to talk about the theme. Talk about the consequences of the war. Talk about what the real origin is, why they are fleeing, and accept them. Because many times when I talk to them, what they really needed is to be accepted and loved. And pray for these people and find a way to communicate positive, kind words about the refugees. Don't criminalize them. They are not guilty. They are not the ones who created the war zone. So think about them as humans. This is a very important aspect. So I'm sorry, what did you ask me?
No, no, no,
Because for
no.
me,
This
this
is
was such a
fine.
long thing.
This is a sign of this is a conversation. So back and forth to make sure that we can give people a better understanding of the situation. So I like what you said. It's talk about give them kind words, and I know there are many children probably wondering, what's happening. They're asking parents. They're asking, you know, how is this possible in 2022? And we know that this is probably perhaps, as reports say, that it's probably one of the biggest refugee crisis since WW2, probably will be. So we are seeing this in our century, in our times. What can you say to the children that may be asking their parents, does it mean that, that we have to also be careful because that may happen to us wherever we are? What can you suggest the parents do at this point?
I think this is a very difficult question. I'm also mother of three children, and to be honest, I could not protect them from bad things to happen to them. You always ask yourself as a parent, what could I do better? How could I protect them more? And we cannot always protect them. But what we can do as a parents is to create environment where we are honest with them and we say, there are bad things happening outside. They might even bad things happen to you, but I'm here for you. I will be with you and I will do whatever possible to protect you and to protect other children. We always need to talk about, the community of children, not just our children. So we need to create this awareness that we are responsible for well-being of each other, for the safety of each other. There are many more things that we are capable and we are in charge of than those that we cannot influence. And this is important for them to understand, even when we are fleeing in different countries. So even though the general opinion about refugees during the refugee crisis in 2015 and 16 was negative, but what happened is we took care of those refugees, no matter what the general opinion was. So there will be a bad language, there will be a bad attitude, but there is more kind people than those who are unkind. And we need to prepare our children to understand this. The word is hard, but there are also people who will protect. And here is a special role of the church and faith communities. Faith communities are providing this safe social network and support for the people who are in crisis. And also now for the Ukraine crisis, I was talking today. We had a quick meeting with all the neighboring countries that are around Ukraine, and all of them were saying the church responded immediately. People are opening the homes and are welcoming the people coming from Ukraine. It was only, for example, Robert from Romania. We had a meeting at 2 o'clock. And he said at 10 o'clock in the morning, we issued the appeal to the church members to open the doors and welcome the refugee families. He said up until now, we had 188 families who are willing to accept the families into their homes. So I think this is the kind of message that we need to communicate to our kids. Yes, we will see hard things. Everybody will expect, and every family will go through hard times in life. But we have something, we have a social network that can protect us.
That's very good. I'm glad you brought up different points that I want to touch on, especially the fact that that the church involvement in all of this has been key, and is key for ADRA, because in the regions, when we don't have enough staff, the volunteers of the church are always there to support and help us out. So describe a little bit about the relationship. I know, so to compare the kinds of things that you were able to do, with the Syrian refugees, and now that perhaps will be needed, those lessons learned to this, to this situation now.
Yes, as you said, volunteers are vital in every crisis, but we need to have trained volunteers because situation is very hard, and we need to support refugees as well. We need to support volunteers as well as they're serving refugees. It's very important that because when I was working with Syrian refugees in Slovenia, I was like we were like three in the office. So how could we do the job? We could not do the job. So we had 150 volunteers who supported us. So we had a huge base of volunteers, and also we were partnering with other organizations. So from my experience, what is important, as I always say, we start with smiles, we start with support, we start with welcoming them. This is like, I was working, you work, when you work with refugees, you work with police, you work with army, you work with civil protection, and they are there because this is their job. But we as ADRA, we are there as volunteers, and we believe in what we're doing, and this is our heart. and they said, "Oh, why are you doing this?" These officers were asking, "Why are you doing this? I mean, what's wrong with you?" Uh, but they said, "Well, these are human beings. We need to support them." And I remember there was one volunteer. We had volunteers from Turkey, from Hungary, or all these different kinds. And they said, the way you treat people, they said, they really, we never seen anything about that. It was amazing. This kindness toward people was so amazing and impressive. And I know that, when children come, what I would do, I would always use, this, because it was winter, I would use funny hats. And many times children, "Oh, can I have it?" And I said, "Of course you can have it." And then we were laughing together. So this is one aspect. It's always so important that we start with this human kindness. Sometimes we can even make it fun with people. But on the other side, these people are going through such a hard situation, and especially young mothers. What we notice is they lose milk; they cannot breastfeed anymore. So we need to provide a safe space for women, for example, so that they don't feel extra threatened. These are hard situations. There is so much psychological pressure on the people. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what they are going to eat. They don't know how they will protect the children, how they will go to school or work or whatever. They will need to learn different language. They will need to accommodate, find jobs. There is so much insecurity. So we need to provide also, when they're traveling, we provide basic needs. This is safety, security. We provide food and shelter, health. We provide doctors. But when they come to the destination country where they settle down, we need to understand that these people are not here because they went to some journey and because they want to have some fun. But these people long to go back. They miss the country. And all of the people I talked to, they were like, "Oh, really, I miss Syria. I miss Afghanistan. These are the most beautiful countries." So this is something that we need to understand. Also, maybe create a groups for people where they can come together, where they can enjoy their own culture. And maybe this is the opportunity that we understand different cultures and we learn from them. I know that there were refugees later on. They would come, they would bring us food, or many stories, and it's such a rich culture that we can also learn from.
Absolutely. So we can grow as a culture, and we can become even more, um, versed in the multicultural aspects of the needs of how we can live as one on one, and actually use that information to grow as human beings. You made a good point in terms of the aspect of, how we can open our doors, and people are listening around the world right now, and this is an invitation for them. That they maybe they're not going to be able to see the Ukraine refugees, but there are other refugees, that
Yes.
ADRA has supported throughout all this time, right? We have Haitian refugees, we have the other Venezuelan refugees, and we have many, many others that I can't even think right now. But this is happening in different regions around the world, and this is a very important time to think about the approach, how we have actually acted towards a fellow refugee, a fellow migrant, a fellow person that's come from a different country. Perhaps this will help a little bit to understand, and the description, the human aspect that you described can help us understand how we can actually change the way we help, the way we feel about people that surround us that may not look or act or speak the language that we speak. So I thank you for bringing that up, and I hope this connects, with people that are as they are listening. And this is a time also to think also that ADRA.org Help Now is really trying to collect funds to help the refugees in the Ukraine. But people need to know also that the projects that are going to refugees are immense. We're doing projects around the world, and the funds that happen, that come in now, will not only help Ukraine, but it will go a long way to help the others, that are coming, or that have, that are still needing assistance because of the pandemic and in other situations. But Maya, I also want to basically just touch a little bit about the psychological aspect, and I know that's very crucial. Um, you know, I understand from some of the latest reports that that people are walking with their kids, walking and finding a different means of transportation to cross the borders, right? So, what does it mean? What kind of you've seen how children have actually been affected or impacted, or even, anyone, the adults in the process of being fleeing from a war and becoming a refugee?
Yeah. For me, I really have even now hard time to when I think about it. It's something that brings very strong emotions when I start to talk about it. But in 2015, when all these refugees started to come through the Balkan route, what happened is because of the non-existing or unsuccessful diplomacy among the countries. There were days when police in one country would just chase the people out, and they would say, go this way, and here you will come to Slovenia for Slovenia. And it was November, it was freezing, it was snowing, and people would swim across the river to reach to another country. And I remember the moment when I was seeing freezing people. So I was working with soldiers and army and civil protection and police. And these were senior officers on these civil protection levels, like the main person. And he was crying. So we were all crying when we saw that it was only one moment of how people were suffering. And yeah, it's a very mentally challenging, emotionally challenging, and this was for us. So can you imagine what happened to these people? So what happened is people were holding the kids, they were crossing these ice cold waters. They didn't know how they will warm themselves up. And when they came, I've noticed some people who were just shaking, who were staring like like they don't see anything. They were like in such a shock that we had to send doctors to help them and to realize they are safe. So this is what they are going through. It's like extreme shock. Many of them are witnessing, for example, bombing. Many of them are witnessing, destructions of the. Many of them are seeing loved people being killed. So I've seen people in frozen river, and I was crying. And can you imagine what these people are going through? What we know is that this is like a huge stress and trauma for them, so they will need professional support.
And so now, that leads me to ask you now. I mean, I know you have, I believe we shared from us some links or some pictures from how countries are preparing to help as the refugees are coming across. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening, and how the preparations that are
Mhm.
underway?
Yes. So today we had a meeting. So as I said, we were trying to be prepared ahead of time. We were hoping until the end this will not happen. So when it happened, it was my husband's birthday. So in the morning we got up and the war started. And we were like, you try to prepare, but you cannot prepare. So we talked today. We had a meeting with Poland and Hungary and Romania, and we talked about what is happening in their countries. So it's very interesting that because different things are happening. Maybe one interesting thing is what is said and funny a little bit. When we talked with a colleague from Hungary, he said, the refugees are not coming here, and we were like, why? He said they still think that the borders are closed. Hungary has a very strict policy on who can cross the country. So he said people are not coming, and we are here. We are preparing to welcome them,
So
but
let's send the word out. Anybody who's listening
they
to us,
don't know. They don't know they can go there.
members, tell them Hungary is ready. Hungary is ready to
Yes.
support you.
Yeah. So Poland, we have a Piotr there. He's really good in fundraising. He's already fundraising. He's meeting the government. All these people are meeting the government, meeting the other NGOs. They are very active, preparing the things, and also they are having meetings with the church. So Hungary, for example, they are preparing two responses. One is for the church members from Ukraine. So they will take care of them. And also for the, let's say, general public from Ukraine, non-church members, they will also work with them, hygiene kits, food and shelters and things like that. But the biggest, I would say, the biggest influx of refugees is expected in Romania. And here, ADRA Romania and the church, they're
Team, do
welcome.
you have any links to the photos? I believe that we were going to prepare to kind of show there.
Yes, yes.
So yeah.
Romania already started to work fully. They sent the teams on the borders. They have 10 youth centers. So I asked Robert, who is the country director of Romania, I said, how many people are you going to welcome in one of these centers? He said, 2,000 families. So and they have 10 centers. So they go big. And as I mentioned before, they are also opening, the church members are opening the doors of their homes. So in a few hours, they had 188 families. I assume that the number is much bigger by now. So we have a big church family and our family in the Romania, and they're opening the doors to the refugees. But Romania is also creating like centers for refugees. And they also they're starting to prepare hygiene kits, when you come and you need, something to feel like a human, just to take a shower and brush your teeth.
Basic stuff, right? That you don't think. Yeah.
Yes. So Romania, we are already on the ground. The thing is that we don't always have a time to take pictures.
Yes.
So, but we are there. We are helping people, and as I said, some countries are just going big, like Romania.
Okay, so we know that Romania, Turkey, Hungary, Turkey,
Poland, Slovakia, yes.
Yeah, they're ready.
Yes.
Preparing.
Yes. We also should not forget Russia, because some people will flee to Russia. So, Russia is also working on because we also have ADRA in Russia, and we also work with them, and they are also welcoming refugees.
Well,
we are different than politics. We welcome people.
Thank you for making that point. So people say, "Yeah, you're gonna, go." Of course, because we're not talking. We don't take sides. ADRA is impartial. ADRA is here for the people. And so let's make that point across. And I hope that people can remember this, that like Maya said, it doesn't matter where you come from or where you are, where you're going. Our goal is to be there for you. And you can actually, people that are joining us from different parts of the world, I see people from Central America, from India, from Europe, and other parts of the world. Thank you so much for joining us. And yes, get the word out. These countries are helping, and ADRA is there, joining with some church members to make sure that people get the support that they need. And you can help. You can help by going to adra.org/help now. The information is right on the screen. And so at this time, I just want to thank you, Maya, for taking this opportunity to give us an update. And I hope you can come back, and we can, as the days progress, and we can do another one of these live interviews, so you can give us an update, in the coming days of the situation once we see how the events unfold, and we see, how the communities in Ukraine have actually crossed the borders and actually are getting the help in those countries that we just talked about. So again, my gratitude goes to you and the people on the ground in Ukraine. Let's keep on praying for them, family out there, friends. Let's keep everybody in prayer, especially the people that will be providing the assistance, and also to these folks, so they can be, the hands, the eyes, the ears, and everything that Jesus provides to us. We can actually serve them in this positive way. Thank you so much, Maya. Appreciate you coming along. And now we're going to go to, I believe, the principal in the U.S. And let me just get her information. There she is. Thank you so much for sticking around. I apologize. We were running a little bit behind because we started the live a little late because of technical reasons. But Sarah Wilson, principal from Fletcher Academy. Thank you so much for joining us. And your school, as I understand it, is a school that has students from Russia and Ukraine, and many families. Can you tell me a little bit about where you are and a little bit about the school? And I'm going to ask you if you could face a little bit this way so we could see a little bit more you on the side.
Right? Like this.
There you go. There you go. Grace. Perfect. So tell us a little bit about the Fletcher Academy.
Well, first of all, I'm actually the principal of Captain Gilmer Christian School. We're the kindergarten through 8th portion of Fletcher Academy. The academy is 9th through 12th grade.
I see.
We have been around since 1910. We're the oldest school in Fletcher, North Carolina. And we have about 10% we have 169 students. 70% are Adventist, 30% are non. So we have a good mixture. And of that 30%, 10% of our student population is Ukrainian. And we have one particular family where the father is Russian and the mother's Ukrainian. So this has been a great impact on our student body, especially during prayer and worship in the morning. This is heavy on the students' hearts because they have friends whose family is directly there right now in Ukraine.
You make point in the previous interview with Maya, who is actually in Slovenia now, and it's one of the countries who will be supporting some of the refugees that will be coming across. She did mention that. She says, it's important to discuss the impact of war.
Absolutely.
Kids, because, it's something that we don't want anybody to go through, but yet, evil is still in the world, and
yes, ma'am.
We have to know how to handle it and how to face it. At the same time, to find the good in it, and that's through service, doing about it. Tell me a little bit about what you've been able to do to help the children cope with the situation.
Well, so far, my teachers have been fantastic. This has been something that when they saw that this happened on Wednesday, they were ready and prepared, that they knew that was going to be a conversation because so many students attend here in the different grade levels. Kindergarten, first grade, it was heavy on their hearts, and they were asking for prayer requests for their grandparents, for their uncles, for their cousins that were there. And one of the teachers in particular in the lower grades told me about the family, because I thought both parents were from Ukraine, and one is from Russia, one is from Ukraine, and how the young man was trying to take sides. And then she explained to them, right now there's devastation on both sides. So we don't want to see people, as you were talking about before, we don't want to see people suffer. And people, unfortunately, are in the mix of this. And those people are not just, these young soldiers. There are babies that are stuck in the middle of this, and elderly, as we've seen on pictures of the news. And there's people who are on both sides. I saw that there was a lot of people in Russia that were saying that this should not be happening. So there's so many families that are being ripped apart because of this, and they're stuck in the middle, and they're unfortunately is the victim. So I'm sure it's very traumatic. I can't imagine what's happening in schools there because it's so heavy on our hearts in America, but yet we're not the ones that are having to run to shelter for bombs. So
so it's key. It is important, the work that you're doing in schools, and making sure that you provide the counseling, the support to the children, and to also be the extension to the parents too, because a lot of times they don't even know what to do on their own. I know that we've had some reports of folks that have sent information, of people that were working and are basically were able to get out and say, oh my gosh, I don't know what happened to my friend. I don't know what happened to my neighbor. He had family, he had pets, he had this. What happened? It's tragic to know that this is the reality. At the same time, how do we move on? How do we help the kids think positive? And I know you're doing some things also so that the prayer is important, and I know that you're finding some ways to also help them do something for service, correct?
So we actually have a grandparent. Yesterday it was hard doing car line when the children are being dropped off. You're smiling, and I didn't want to say anything in front of the children, but when that pickup, when the children were gone, I was able to talk to some families, and I just said to them, we're praying for you. And this was at our faculty worship. That's all we can talk about because of, again, we have connections. Several of them started crying. One in particular, all of her family was right there when the Russians came over the border, and she's like, the internet's been down. I can't get phone calls. It was very traumatic, and talking about how they couldn't get gas, people couldn't get food. So we have a grandmother is who's from the Ukraine, and we are going to help. She's getting a list together. She's getting stuff together for some of the victims of this, and she's got a list that she has started, and we as a school are going to start participating in getting donations. And she actually was on the local news for what she's doing. And again, she has a way to get stuff over there since that's where she's from. And so she's in the process of setting all of that up, and she's allowing us, the school, to partner and be able to help collect the donations, such as blankets, such as bandage, and any medical supplies that we can and stuff. So we're going to have the opportunity to participate in the grandmother's drive that she's doing.
That's wonderful. I just want to also make mention that, there's also, the way that, and I'm glad you were able to join us today, but one way that we were hoping to encourage folks to really think about helping is through ADRA. Because there's a reason why the aid becomes instant. You don't have to worry about airlifting anything, especially now that we don't know what's going to happen, or shipping stuff. It is very costly. The price of gas has gone triple or
sky high.
We have the infrastructure. We have the personnel, as as people were joining us before. We have people that have the experience also to help and to reach the refugees that are there in a matter of seconds,
and it's ever changing. And I was so glad to hear that as things are changing and needs are changing, that ADRA recognizes that, and they're willing to change as needed. So if it might be medical supplies are okay right now, but it's food shortage, and then that might switch, in a couple of days. I hope it does not last. I'm sure everybody would stand with me that we hope that this is very short term, but it's important to be able to have an infrastructure in place that you can change as needed, because as we are well aware, just like with COVID, things at the beginning were very different as things in the middle and the end. And so having an organization that changes, I think that's important to recognize that needs are going to change. I was also thrilled to find out that 90% of everything that people donate for it goes straight to it. The 10%, of course, you have to have cost of being able to get supplies there, have cost and able to be able to set up places and stuff. But 90% is a great amount.
So the donations get utilized, like you said, not only for the emergency aspect, but the interesting part about ADRA that perhaps people may not know is that we don't just support during disaster crises of this nature. We're staying here for the long haul, which means that, when the refugees come from, now that they cross the borders into the safe havens, the safe centers in other countries, they will be there temporarily, but then what happens? They're going to need to find employment, like Maya said. They're going to need to learn the language. Kids need to go to school. They need to find a way to be part of that community. So ADRA has already structures and programs in place to provide to these refugees long term. It doesn't matter if they're going to stay there a week, a month, or years. We have refugees in many, many places around the world that have, come in because of war situations or conflicts and things, and they have actually fled, and now they have made their communities. We have helped them to become a community wherever they are. So they have, they've been able to survive, but also to find hope and a place where they can, blossom with their families and create a new family, a new place to live. And that's very important. Important thing to think about when we talk about the help that we provide. And that's why we're stressing that if people want to extend the help and continue to help, they can do it through adra.org/now. That's on our banner now. Just go there to the link. It doesn't matter how much or or when you do it. Just it's going to go for a long way, and it's going to not only support the immediate needs but the long-term needs of all of the refugees that we're supporting. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love that, and I have this verse up in Luke 4 to where when Jesus was first starting his ministry, he read from the book of Isaiah. The
Yeah.
Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. And it's not just poor of monetary things. It's poor
Mine.
of,
Yeah.
yes, of circumstances, feeling downhearted, but yet we have an opportunity to bring that good news. The only news that matters, Jesus Christ being Lord of Lords and King of Kings, and this world's not our home. And the reason I think it's so important for ADRA to be over there is because there's lots of good humanitarian places. There's lots of good places that I think of other places that have supplied um, and met people's needs and do this. But the best thing that you can give somebody, the greatest gift, is more than bread, is more than bandages, even more than medical supplies, is when you can give them the power, that good news that this world's not our home and something better is coming. You can give them hope. And I think that's why ADRA makes the difference, is because when you are founded on the Word of God and you're founded are the one who created everything, that hope is life-giving. And when your life is being ripped apart, I cannot imagine losing a house, a child. I can't imagine going through what they are going through. And America needs to realize we're not always going to be safe. This is the reality of the world we're living in. But the hope that we have is this world's not our home. There is something better. And when you're delivering that hope, when you're feeding somebody, when you're clothing somebody, and when you are helping them, that's so much bigger than even the act itself. And God wants us to take action. Jesus Christ came as our ultimate example, and he did. He took action. But with that action, it was always founded on the Word of God. And that's what makes the difference. And I feel like that's why we as an institution, Fletcher Academy, Captain Gilmer, we exist. There's lots of great academics out there, but we've got the Lord as our foundation. And that's the difference that's made. And I really appreciate ADRA being willing to be the difference.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's better for some of the supporters like yourself to talk about us and for us to talk about ourselves. It's important for us to know that we are making a difference in the lives of people around the world, and that that we can be an extension of
Absolutely.
God in the field, wherever we may be, and we're going to be here, and we're going to be here because of the donors that continue to support us. So we want to thank them. There are so many people that are joining us from different parts of the world, and we're so grateful for you to have taken the time to watch us right now and to keep on tuning to our information. We're going to be with you in the coming days through our social networks and also through this kind of live interviews to bring you a little bit of the insight of what's happening here at home in the US, right, and around the world with this situation. But we're so pleased that your Academy, Fletcher, and Captain, sorry, I'm trying to get the right
Gilmer. It's okay.
Academy, has taken the time to do something. And one thing I want to stress is that I think that the work that you're doing locally with the community is so important, because the families, the children that are here, that are from different backgrounds, from Russia or from Ukraine, are going to need our support.
Amen.
And the people that are watching and listening to us also are going to need to understand how the human factor of this conflict, so that we don't also reject the Russian families that are our neighbors, or reject the Ukrainian families that are our neighbors, but we also open our hands, and support them here, because I'm sure there are emotional situations going on when people not knowing where they are, where their families are, where what's going to happen, will they be able to come back to their homes if they come back as refugees here in other parts of the world. So let's keep them in our prayers, and I want to thank you and your students and your staff for providing that support in your community, and encourage other communities to do the same.
Absolutely.
There's schools around the world, and there's schools in the US, and there might be also higher institutions who might be thinking the same way, the churches, schools. we have to stand together and do the work so that,
And just letting them know they're being seen, and I think that meant a lot.
yes,
I didn't want to say stuff in front of children, and several of our staff spoke to them too, but letting them know we're praying for you, and that's on both sides, because it's not like both sides are happy about this war that's happening. There's obviously a lot of turmoil there on both sides, and to be able to just look at them and take the time out to pray with them and let them know that you're standing with them in faith, that God is the ultimate one that's in control.
absolutely. Just showing that you care. And if you
Absolutely.
care, I'm going to say it one more time. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if you do want to help, please, adra.org/help now. That's the best thing that you can do, and continue to support activities like the ones at the Academy now, so that you can also help the people that have an intention to give back, to those people in need. Thank you so much,
Thank
Sarah,
you.
for staying with us and for joining us and for just giving us just a quick overview of what you're facing in your school. So our prayers are with you and with the kids there, so that you can continue to do your work. And address here, to also have a platform. You have a platform to talk about the things that you're doing. So give us a call back, send us a text message, and we'll see. We'll come back to you and we'll discover the kinds of things you're doing to support this
Well,
community.
thank you. And then I'm going to just say one more time, the Russian and Ukrainian people are beautiful people. I see how they're part of our community here. And I cannot tell you, the children are precious, just precious children. The family, just so caring, and have just become part of our hearts and community here at Captain Gilmer. And I'm thinking, having these children, whether as refugees or within your community, truly is a blessing. I mean, it's a true blessing. No, we don't want it to happen like this, but if people are willing to open their hearts and mind, through them, you're able to serve others. And Jesus said, whoever you feed in my name, clothe in my name, whoever you visited in prison, that's what you've done to me.
The least of these you do,
That's
right?
right. And so this is our opportunity to show the world, why, as Seventh day Adventists, that we're different. And that is, again, the hope of Jesus Christ. So thank you so much to ADRA and for all that you're doing, and the flexibility of being able to serve the people as the needs come up. I'm sure they're going to be ever changing, but we're praying for you as well.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And so we'll be coming back to the Academy probably in the future. So thank you again. And you know how to find us. And I guess I'm going to go to uh, Kenzie Hardy, who is going to talk about what other locations are doing. Thank you, Kenzie, and thank you for your patience in coming back to us. Before I start with you, I want to just answer some of the questions that are here. People are asking if we have offices in places like Philadelphia or other parts. So our headquarters is in the U.S., but it's in the Silver Spring, Maryland. We're about a half an hour away from the nation's capital. But you can reach us, wherever you are. We have engagement officers in different parts of the country that can support you if you want to contact them. Send us your information through our Facebook page, and we'll be happy to connect with you if you have something that you want to coordinate with us. But Kenzie, thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about the work, and you're going to talk about some of the church engagement and some of the activities that are taking place, correct? I think you're on mute yourself for a second. Let me just make sure. There you are. Can you hear me? No, not yet. Hold on. Let's see if the digital team can help us. Let's see if we have. In the meantime, let me make sure that you understand that we're actually had the opportunity to speak to Maya. She is the uh, advocacy expert for ADRA in the region where the Ukraine is. She's in Slovenia right now, but her office is in Brussels, and she has been on the front lines of helping refugees in different situations from the time when we assisted the Syrian refugees in 2015 to now. She is actually leading the way for the preparations that are taking place in Poland, Slovenia, Slovakia. Um, and Hungary and other places around the world. And she was telling us that some of the most important things that she's seeing is that the churches are opening their doors. They are very happy to welcome the refugees, and even some of them are even asking, "Where are they? We're ready." They got up early this morning and yesterday, and they started to plan some of the activities. So we're making sure that people know, if you can get words to your loved ones in that region, that to come over. The churches are working with ADRA, and they are ready to support you wherever you are. Kenzie?
Yeah, I was just watching the live stream a little bit earlier, and I was really excited to hear Maya there in the field, and just it's amazing to see the support. But yeah, I'm coming this morning. I'm part of the community engagement team here at ADRA. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what our efforts have been. And so part of our response, starting yesterday, a little before on Wednesday evening, was to start a focused outreach to the congregations around our North American division that have a strong Ukrainian presence. So communities in Sacramento, here in California, there's a big community in Ohio, different parts of the country that have representation, people that have families that have immigrated from the Ukraine and from that place of our world. And so we reached out to them, usually the pastor, the lay pastor, the leader there, and try to find out how they were doing. Number two, if there's any support that we could have or we could give them on awareness, raising awareness of their needs, their community needs here or back home. And then also to provide a voice in our ADRA channels. I know you've had some people in our live streams here that have been involved in different programming, and that have, we've learned through them that they're doing things like they have a vigil in a church in New York and stuff like that. So just basically giving them a voice here in ADRA, learning from them, and also sharing the resources and the outreach that ADRA is doing on the field. And I know you've mentioned before, we're still learning what's needed and what the focus is in the field in Ukraine, where our team is, but we're sharing that with schools, with churches. It started with churches, and it's kind of expanded a little bit, and I'm glad to see the results of that here in the interviews and the live stream.
Yeah, so it's the work that we do in the field is important, but the work that we do here in North America is just as important, right? Because if we are always out in different parts of the world, it's hard to communicate what we do, and so it's also a time for us to give a little bit more information that ADRA is not just a disaster response agency. We are there for the long haul. And the church engagement portion of making sure that the churches connect with us is so key. Have you heard of what's happening in different parts of the kind of activities that will be taking place to support our efforts, and also to make sure to lift them up in prayer?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is a Ukrainian church in New York, and the Greater New York Conference. So they have been holding vigils with their community, both the church community, but also inviting people in the area, because there's a lot of Ukrainian people there that are living. And so they've been holding vigils to pray. I talked to one of the local pastors, and he said some of them are in person, some of them have been through Facebook and other stream media and YouTube and all that, since people are still doing virtual things, so they can tune in from different areas. But they have been holding vigils. I know they're going to be holding them more repeatedly now that there's an increased need for prayer and just bringing together the community. I really like what they're doing in reaching out to people locally in their church and that are part of the church, but also the greater community that lives there. And I also really like their varied approach in having in-person meetings, and also just things that are virtual and remote and accessible. And so I know that that's something that's going on. Other places in the country are holding, different prayer chapels, different prayer meetings. Sometimes there's WhatsApp groups that are being shared, and just the communities finding support through talking to each other. I know a lot of them are very curious about what ADRA's doing. And actually, we had a few teachers ask us immediately, like, what's ADRA doing? Where's the link? Where can we donate? So it's been a really awesome thing to see on this side, how churches, how our community, regardless of whether or not they're a Ukrainian population, are wanting to help, are wanting to come together. And I love the idea of the big church family that lives outside of the NAD, that it's just global, and that we find support in the ways we can to help each other in times of need. And the people.
And we have to mention that our church community is not just from the Adventist world. I mean, we have church members that are supporting the efforts because we have the infrastructure that goes a long way, and we actually are so grateful for them to rely on us, to count on us, to actually do the work in the fields. And we're very blessed for having those trusted partnerships with a number of, other Christian organizations that are, key when we do the work outside. We couldn't do it without them because we have
Absolutely.
to always build the alliances to come together. It is so key for us to continue to do the work with having hand in hand, with them, with their support. So I want to, you might want to do a call out to folks that may want to do something in their churches for ADRA. And I know there's a way for them to help us by the banner that's there on the screen, ADRA.org Help Now. Is probably the best way. People might be thinking, well, can I get food for them? Can I come up with other essential needs? But the reality is that perhaps money is the best way to support at this time, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are focusing our help on the people that have been impacted over there, and we're learning from our team in field what the needs are going to be. And so we have set up several, and the banners right there. We have set up several ways for people to donate and be engaged in that and support them in that way. Of course, prayers are welcome. All that your church can do to reach out to local people that might be in need, might need support. The best way is we have a link specifically for churches, and I think that just keeps track of where donations are coming from. But adra.org/partner with us. So the words partner with us, no spaces. That's specifically for churches and other schools that might want to get involved and start raising funds for our help and for our effort in Ukraine. We also have an email address. I know that a lot of churches want to keep track of what ADRA is doing, the support, what's happening in ADRA, what we're doing, how they can best help. So we've actually set up an email address. And so if they want to, if they want to
take a minute, if it's possible, for us to put the link for the partnerships with the churches, if that's possible, and also the website, or the link to the website, that would be wonderful if that's as we continue to talk. So you were saying about there's a way.
So this email address, and I hope they can put it up on the banner as well. It's churches@adra.org. That will just get them in our kind of mailing list to help them understand what's going on, keep them up to date with information as we receive it and are able to share it. I know a lot of congregations are interested in finding out and keeping up to date with what's needed, the impact is being done in the field as well. And we'll keep learning with our partners there, and as the situation develops, we'll keep learning about the needs and what needs to be done, and we'll update you on the website through live streams that we're doing, but also for churches specifically, and even some of the other organizations can do it through that email address, through that donation site.
And if you didn't get it, here we go, churches@adra.org. It's right on the screen there. So that's a way, again, how you can send us a message of staying informed of the kinds of things that we are doing, that you can partner with us for future activities or for the current situation now, and the things that we can work with you on that. So Kenzie, I really appreciate the time that you've taken. I know there's a lot of work that we're doing, all of us, in a sense, to here at home and on the ground. So we keep on praying for the activities that are happening over there. We thank everybody for joining us for this almost an hour and some minutes, to get all the information from the field, from folks in Europe, and from the people that are here at home doing something in the schools, and to Kenzie, who is actually working with the churches around and engaging them in this time of need for the people in the Ukraine. So
and Iris, thank you so much for having me. And if I can say just one more thing,
sure.
Churches that are listening out there, church members, we encourage you to get involved with ADRA. We encourage you to raise funds as needed and just partner with us. Reach out to our team. We're happy to engage you in different ways you can get involved, other than donations if you need to. If you have a community that needs support, please reach out to us. We're happy to engage with you and communicate and see what the best solution is.
There you go. So you heard, family, church family, and even if you're not part of the Adventist community, it doesn't really matter. We are here to support.
We're all family.
Yes. So this is the time that we come together. So then again, the invitation has been extended. You know where to find us. You know how to provide the assistance through us by going to churches@adra.org or through the other website that we included, which is the adra.org/helpnow. Thank you for taking time on your lunch hour in the U.S. and the time and the hours that you've taken in other parts of the world. We'll be coming to you live at other times throughout the days. So stay tuned for the messages on our social media platforms, and you'll know the exact times that we'll be joining you. Thank you again for staying with us. Take care. Thank you, Ken.